Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're looking at the whole conversation around artificial intelligence, but through a totally new lens. The source material for this explainer argues that the public debate we're all having is, well, being intentionally shaped. And we're going to unpack exactly how.
Okay, so let's kick things off with a question that, you've probably seen everywhere. In the news, on social media. So much of the talk around AI is about its character. Is it friendly? Is it safe? Could it actually become conscious? But what if? What if those aren't the most important questions we should be asking?
Well, here's where it gets really interesting. The source we're looking at argues that this entire conversation, all this focus on the behavior and personality of AI models, is no accident. It's actually a carefully constructed narrative designed to be a distraction. It's meant to drown out the real, much louder noise of the changes AI is forcing on our world.
So, to really get what's going on, we need to understand these two key ideas, the motor and the silencer. Think of it this way. The motor is this huge, powerful engine driving AI forward no matter what. And the silencer, that's the story they tell to cover up all the noise that engine is making.
All right, so first up, let's talk about the engine itself, the AI hype motor. This isn't just about flashy press releases. It's a very real, very powerful economic and political force, and it's got a very specific job to do.
So what's this motor actually doing? Well, it's not just hype. It's a real economic and political powerhouse. It's sucking in massive investments, concentrating capital into just a few big companies. That money then fuels the nonstop building of new data centers, it greases the wheels for deals with governments, and it gets our schools, our hospitals, you name it, more and more hooked on AI. Basically, it's normalizing automation everywhere. It is the engine of real, physical change in the world.
And there's a name for this whole relentless push: accelerationism. Now, this isn't some deep philosophical theory. It's just the straightforward corporate drive to build more of everything. More compute, more models, more data centers, all riding on a wave of hype.
Okay, so that's the motor, and it's making a ton of noise, right? It's disrupting jobs, it's straining power grids. So how do the companies behind it handle all that pushback? Well, that's where the silencer comes in.
And this strategy has a name, too. It's called pseudo-breakism. It's a really clever communication tactic. It basically soaks up all the social anxiety and criticism that the motor creates, and it does it by changing the subject, by using a very specific set of words, like safety, empathy, trust, and personality. And this is a perfect illustration of that switcheroo. On one side, you've got the real noise from the motor. Job loss, huge energy demands, communities pushing back, the messy, complicated stuff. But then the silencer kicks in and redirects our attention over here to a much simpler, cleaner conversation about safety, trust, and whether the AI has a good persona. It's a total change of topic.
But this silencer isn't a one-trick pony. The source points out that it actually works in two different ways. Two different tones, you could say. But both are designed to do the exact same thing. Keep our eyes glued to the AI model itself and not on what it's doing to the world around it.
So the first approach is what's called moral psychological. This is where we talk about AI like it's a person, almost. It has a character that needs to be fixed. We talk about its feelings, its welfare, its safety. Then there's the second approach, cognitive mechanical. Here, we treat the AI like this super complex, mind-like machine. We need to pop the hood and inspect its circuits and planning abilities. They sound different, right? But look at the end result. Both get us debating the AI's internal state, not its external impact.
So here's the big takeaway, right? If we can train ourselves to hear past the noise of the silencer, what are the questions we should be asking? Well, the source argues we need to totally shift our focus away from the AI's personality and onto the huge structural changes it's causing.
Okay, first, the labor question. Forget asking if an AI is helpful. The real question is, which workers is this system making easier to monitor, to measure, and, ultimately, to replace?
Next up, the institutional question. We really need to look at our big institutions: healthcare, law, education. How are they becoming totally dependent on private tech infrastructure, and which crucial human judgments are we just turning into lines of code?
And then there's the energy question. This is about the real, physical world. The cloud isn't some fluffy thing in the sky. It's giant buildings, data centers, that drink incredible amounts of electricity and water. So the real question is, which community's power grid is getting slammed to power this? And what kind of energy future are we getting locked into because of it?
Number 4, the state capacity question.
What happens to a government when its most basic services, even its national security, start to depend on products from a handful of private companies? Who's really in charge then? Where does the accountability lie?
And last but definitely not least is the norms question. All this talk about AI being helpful and safe, it's not just pleasantries. It is actively teaching us how to behave. It's setting a new normal for what a good student or a good worker or a good citizen acts like. It's a kind of subtle social engineering.
So when you step back and look at the whole picture, the motor and the silencer working together, you start to see the ideal endgame from the corporation's point of view. It's a really careful balancing act.
And according to the source, that perfect scenario has 3 key parts. 1, in practice, it's just pure accelerationism. Build, 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 go as fast as you can. 2, in the public conversation, it's pseudo-breakism. Talk constantly about safety and ethics to manage how people feel. And 3, what about all the public anger? Well, you channel it. You're directed at tiny, surface-level problems that don't actually threaten the bigger project.
And that brings us to what might be the most powerful idea in this whole framework. It's not that the AI bosses want everyone to love AI. They're fine if you hate it. What matters is that your hatred, your loathing, is pointed at all the wrong things. At the AI's personality, not the power grid.
So, the whole point of this explainer was to give you a new way to hear the conversation about AI, to help you sort out the real noise of the motor from the distracting hum of the silencer. And that leaves us with one final question for you. Now that you can hear past the noise, what are you going to listen for?